So the Super Bowl happened. It's a thing that happens every year, apparently. Like, I never watch it. I'm not into sports. I've never been into sports. And really, the only interest that I've ever had in the Super Bowl, like some people say, oh, for the halftime, for the ads. I don't even really care, but they debut a lot of major trailers there. I still won't watch the game. Like, I don't need to jump on this right away as soon as it hits the TV airways. It's going to be online and a little bit afterwards. It always is. The only trailer this year that was anything I'm interested in seeing is like a full trailer for Falcon and Winter Soldier, because pretty much everything else was either stuff I have no interest in or stuff that had more thorough trailers already this year. So let's take a look at this one, shall we?
So, who would like to start? Mr. Barnes, why does Sam aggravate you?
15 seconds to drop. So what's our plan? Great.
Okay, so we're gonna watch them start to have to work together. I dig that.
Superheroes cannot be allowed to exist.
Sounds like Zemo.
I have no intention to leave my work unfinished.
Yes, it is. And they're gonna mask him up this time.
The world's upside down right now. Where do we start?
Trying to get a handle on the shield. Dig that.
Buck, I have a plan. Oh yeah? What is it?
Here we go again, huh?
Oh, Sharon. Welcome back. Hopefully not being a forced romantic interest for Cap. It'll go better. Jeez.
Hello, girl, kick your ass.
These are impressively big action scenes for a TV show. I know they got Disney money, but dang.
See? That wasn't so hard.
Are you ready? Is you ready?
Okay.
You say you ready?
What are you doing?
Whole squad ready?
Are you having a staring contest?
Are you ready? Is you ready?
Just blink. Sweet Jesus. I mean, how old are you?
Okay. I'm digging the vibe off that. I'm getting a bit of the kind of espionage vibe, which is a good thing to pick up on, especially because that was kind of the vibe for Captain America the Winter Soldier, where Bucky as the Winter Soldier got introduced. So that makes total sense to pick up on that. It's nice to see Sharon Carter back, and hopefully the character will get to come into her own here in a way that unfortunately she never got the chance to do in the shows. And I'm very hopeful for that, because that's been a big part of the appeal of WandaVision for me so far into that show, is watching characters who were sidelined, who were supporting, get a little more time, a little more chance to shine, and maybe even in ways that we haven't seen from them before. So I like seeing her involved. Zemo, I've been interested in this version of Zemo since we saw him in Civil War. I'll be curious to see what direction they go. Because, like, obviously, if they're going to give him the mask visually, they might start to align him more with his comic book counterpart. Textually, they kind of can't, because the comic book Baron Zemo is a completely different can of worms in terms of origin and motivation. But I'll be interested to see in what ways they choose to drift him closer to the comic book version. As I mentioned, that's some impressive action scenes for a TV show. And, like, look, it's not that Disney can't afford it. Obviously, Disney can't afford it. I will be curious to see how many scenes like the two trucks on the highway we're actually going to get in the show, because people tend to forget that, say, the first season of The Mandalorian was fairly restrained as far as its action scenes went, because it was pretty sporadic, and most of them involved practical stuff, involved people with prop guns, and the only things really being added was maybe a different background and the lasers effects. So seeing something like this, which is a much more completely compositive CGI, green screen use, big effects heavy thing on a TV budget in its first go. I was going to say in its first season. I don't know if any of these Disney Plus shows are being planned to continue past the first season. The impression that I've gotten up to this point is that they're being designed as miniseries, which I actually kind of like the notion of better. Another thing I found myself wondering with Zemo is, especially if they're going to go an espionage route, is whether or not he'll try and reassemble the bits of Hydra that might still be around. That's complete supposition. There was nothing in there that made me really think that he might. It's just that he was operating basically 100% on his own before, just manipulating things and pretty much working solo for the most part. And I think it would be tricky to have the scope and scale of that this show seems to be implying if he doesn't have some kind of force behind him, some kind of henchmen, other things going on that are working under him. He didn't need them in Civil War because he was pitting the heroes against themselves. He didn't need his own force. He was taking the force of the Marvel heroes and just making them in fight. I don't think he's going to be able to get away with that this time, although I'll be curious to see what he does to push at any weaknesses in the group cohesion, because I expect him to. But I figure he's got to have some kind of organization either underneath him or behind him at this point. So Hydra was just the first thing that came to my mind. If they do that, it might not be feasible because, as I've mentioned before, I stopped watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. halfway through the third season, and by that point, the stuff that they'd started doing with Hydra had just completely lost me. I wasn't interested at all. It was part of the reason I bowed out of the show at that point, to be completely honest, and I don't know if they ever did anything more with Hydra after season 3, but I don't know if those are pieces, I don't know if A, if there are any pieces left to pick up, and B, if they're worth picking up, and then having to retroactively explain the shape that Hydra's in, if it was actually heavily impacted by Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for all the people who didn't stick with that show. Again, hello. So I'll be curious, but there's a nice heavy emphasis on the interaction between Sam and Bucky and that animosity, which honestly makes a lot of sense because, okay, I'm not going to try and make this a weird shipping thing, but I totally get them each kind of being jealous of the other because in both cases, the person who they were closest to within the Avengers, it was the same person. They were both the closest to Steve, and now Steve's gone. So I wouldn't be shocked if Chris Evans has an old Steve cameo somewhere in this. I wouldn't be surprised, but he's not going to be a major player. So, knowing that they basically kind of both had the same BFF in the circumstances that they were working within, the animosity makes sense to me. And of course, I don't doubt the shippers are going to go double nuts. One, because it gives you a nice love triangle or affection triangle or platonic friend triangle, or however you want to do it, at play, in addition to the potential of an animosity to friends, or another way to put it would be enemies to lovers trope. Again, not a shipper, but I do sometimes take amusement when I spot the things like, I bet your shipping community is going to do something with that. I think that's about all I've got. Like I said, impressive scale, liking the bits I get. The vibe is very different from WandaVision, which is great. And again, I'm loving WandaVision, but it's really good that these are having such distinct flavors from each other. It makes, at least for me as an audience member, burnout on these shows way less likely. So, yeah, I'm here for it. I dig it. It was a good trailer. What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. I have a Patreon, which is what pays my bills and keeps this whole operation up and running. I would not be able to do this as my job without that support. Any amount you're able to support does help me out. There are perks for every level, but even if you can't, like, share, subscribe. I've got social medias you can follow me on. All that helps me out, but, you know, no pressure. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so just come on back next time you need a break.